All right, to finish up assignment 10, our colorization project, still working with my PSD file. This has all the components that make my image what I want it to be. So I started with the black and gray image. Underneath that, I put in color fills, flat color. On top of that, I did a lighter version for the highlights. So it looks like those flat colors in brighter light. Fairly subtle, especially in the skin tones. Then I did a shadow version, which darkened those flat colors and then erased away to reveal highlights, and then also used a soft, low opacity brush to soften some edges in between. So the shadows on the guitar there, here, the pick guard, the hand going back, soften the hairline. And on top of all of that go the black and gray lines in multiply mode. So it's just like dropping inks behind the silver nitrate crystals. But then to color the words here in a way, and the guitar strings in a way that didn't bring too much of the black out, I did a top layer in color mode, just for little details, where I colored the strings more golden, and I colored the writing kind of with a red marker in parts. All right, and there we have kind of our finished product. Now, at this point, I have it saved already as a PSD, and that's great. Now I'm going to flatten it, just like we would to print it, and save it as a TIFF, not necessarily a print-ready TIFF, because now, just like we've done in the past, I'll save it to the desktop for the time being, I need to treat it like any other photo, and I want to run it through actions now. Or I might want to do things like vignette it, just to remember what vignetting is. Either dodging or burning, treating the edges differently than the rest. So I'm going to try burning it a little bit. I'm going to burn the highlights, and only about 20% with a very large, very soft brush. And I'm doing this on a duplicate layer. And I'm doing especially for the lighter tones. That's why I'm only burning the highlights. Like the hand and the doorway at the edges, and especially this corner. And then if I feel like some of the darks need it too, I might very softly do it to the midtones as well. It is not safe to burn the shadows because they'll just go to solid black very quickly. So I avoid that. And if there's anything else you think that needs darkening, you can kind of hit and retouch certain aspects. So let me see if that made a difference. So on the bottom here, I want this to get more lost to shadow. Big difference. And then of course, because we tend to overdo it, we can always scale it back. But I do want to kind of minimize it, so I'm going to keep it at 100%. Okay, if I like that, then I'm going to run actions on it. So I go to my actions. And there might be only one or two actions I want under Carl's customized effects. But I'll go ahead and run all of them. Make sure you only have one thing open in Photoshop. And this will just push the colors in a lot of different ways. It will even take the color out and make it into sepia or black and white. But the high pass filter will give me more texture in some. Some will bring out the cools, some will bring out the warms. And this is because the history of photography has a lot of grammar that's based on color processing. You know, all the pictures of me as a child are either too blue or too green or too pink. And it has a lot to do with these kind of vintage colors. So now to view them all, I arrange, I float all in Windows. I hit F9 to see them all. And I can immediately throw away some, like these black-white ones, especially where they really push the contrast. I just close those immediately. I think this black and white one, remember this is black and white with my color, is a little bit more stark, but is actually maybe a little bit better as a black and white photo than the one I started with. It's good for your colors to make some strong decisions. This vintage one looks too washed out. The Wonder Blues with the color sensitivity, this gives me a lot of particular channels I can use to really bring out subtleties in color, should I want to. So I might minimize that. This goes all towards the blues. That's very much how old photos looked. This is another one that really shows those blues. This is all the greens. But this one, this Cool Beans, it looks more documentarian. I like what it does to his shirt. And it just puts color fills over everything. And it's like glazing on a painting. Just mixing those kind of yellow, that coffee color into every color helps bring everything together. So there might be something there I can use. The heightened drama, which is usually too extreme, really does a nice job of bringing out the texture of his hair. It makes the colors on his shirt a little bit more intense. So maybe there's something there. The max texture, something I always like. Definitely helps to bring out the texture in his hair and on his stubble. I kind of like the warmth of this. And I even like this subtle sepia effect here. This really exaggerates the colors. But look what it does to those, the brass knobs. I mean, it makes those look really good. Makes him look like he's made up, but makes some of the subtler color choices look really nice. So it's just nice to push your photo in different ways. And I actually like this one. So here's my original. And I have all these others that I like. I'm going to kind of bring it down. Get it down to 3 or 4 that I think have something to contribute. So of these 2, I'll get rid of this one. And of these 2, I think I'll get rid of this one. And of these 2, I'll stick with my original. Stick with my original. Don't need this. Okay, so now I have my original, and then I have 3 that I want to use. 1 for warms, 1 for cools, 1 for the texture. So I bring those into my TIFF. And just to remind you how I do that is I click on each one, I flatten them. I could play, if I'm being really picky, I could play with their individual layer adjustments as well and the opacity of them. And then flatten them. And then select all, copy, close it, paste it onto your original. And it will float on top of your original photo. Same with this one, select all, copy, close, It's already flattened, paste it on top of my original. And then lastly, this one, already flattened, copy, paste on top of my original. Now, how do I make it look good? Well, I'm trying to make it improve with each step. So, do I want it at 100%? Do I want it at 0%? Do I want it somewhere in between? Or do I want a blending mode? So in this case, if I overlay it, it's too strong. Burn the colors. That gives me some really nice shadow tones. But I want it much less. So, you see that gives me pinks all of a sudden in the skin tones that I don't have before. So I like that. It gives me a lot more dimension to my color just by using actions in a smart way. Next, see if I can do the same with the cools. Maybe just a slightly low opacity. Gives those cools a lot more oomph. But I could try different blending modes as well. I try color dodge. Not too bright. I can burn the colors. It's going to darken it more, but it's a pretty light exposure. No, I think I like it on normal and just maybe about 20%. Trying to improve it with each step. And I like what that does to the background. I like what it does to the knobs. I don't like how it kind of deadens his skin tones a little bit. And if I wanted to, I could just softly erase out. You know, it's a very soft eraser, maybe a fairly low opacity, nice and big. I could erase the face on that layer, let some of that warmth come through. A little bit more. So that the face color doesn't change, but the background color does slightly. Yeah, I like that. All right, and then finally the texture. And I'll usually use this on like a pin light mode. It's very subtle, but you'll see how it helps all the brights pop a little. Maybe it's going to show too many of my coloring mistakes. Yeah, it shows a little too many of my mistakes. So I'll be a little more subtle with it. I think that looks too dark. So let's try just normal. All right, so I think that's as good as I'm going to get in my hand coloring of Woody Guthrie here. So some options now. I save that as my TIFF. It's not print ready yet because you don't want to flatten it. It has all your color versions on here. To the desktop. Now I want to flatten it. Make it my print ready version. Made to print about 8 by 10 by 350 pixels per inch as a TIFF with LZW turned on. And now what I can do is create a canvas size that is 9 by 12 around it with white as the extension color. And then I can go and make the canvas size grow from the right-hand side.